Mortgage rates are staying high and housing values have not come down. How much income would you need to be able to afford a $700,000 house? I've got that analysis, that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button as mortgage rates stay elevated, 7% on average for a 30-year loan. The housing market has stayed stubborn, and that's basic supply and demand. Most people thought, well, the higher interest rates go, or as mortgage rates stay high, housing prices are going to have to come down, and they haven't, at least not right away, because people aren't listing their house. They don't want to trade their 3% mortgage for a 7% mortgage. Even if they think they could sell their house for a higher amount, they'd have to buy one for a higher amount. And it's really got the entire housing market in this conundrum. And we know housing affordability then is at lows we haven't seen since the 80s, 40 some years. So trying to get into a house or trying to move or upgrade your house is extremely challenging, and a lot more challenging than it's been in the past. In fact, take a look at this. Saw this recently. The cost difference or comparison between the cost to own a home, the cost to rent a home is at its highest level or greatest difference ever. And yet, if you don't own a home, if that's a goal of yours, and you don't own a home, it's hard for you to build up the equity, and therefore it's going to be potentially harder and harder for you to eventually own a home out there in the future. So how much income would you need to be able to afford a house, okay? And just had to pick a number. So a $700,000 house. How much income would you need to be able to afford that? Well, the first nut that you'd need to crack is the down payment. And often recommended, I certainly would agree, a 20% down payment. And the reason why is, number one, that's going to give you a little bit of cushion of equity just in case something changes, especially, at some point it does seem like housing prices will come down. You're not going to be able to time it perfectly, and therefore having some equity is going to give you a little bit of cushion there to make sure that you manage the risk. And speaking of risk, it manages the bank's risk as well, since you're going to be getting a mortgage on that, and having 20% down gives you more favorable terms, gives you the best interest rate, and so on. So a 20% down payment on a $700,000 house, that's $140,000. So the question of affordability, or how much income would you need to be able to afford a $700,000 house, is how long will it take you to build up that $140,000? If you've already got a home and you've been paying down on your mortgage, hopefully you've got that equity built up, especially if you've owned a home before the pandemic and you've seen the property value rise, then hopefully that is manageable. Otherwise, if you don't already have a home where you've got some equity, it's going to take you a little bit of time to build this up, quite a bit of time, and therefore, obviously, you've got to build that into the equation as well as to how much income you would need in order to build up that down payment within a reasonable amount of time. All right, next, and this is where most of the analysis is done, because that down payment is a significant hurdle, and it's getting more and more challenging for people to make their down payments. And take a look at this statistic here from Redfin about how many people for their first home are needing to borrow money from or get a gift from family members or whatever to afford their down payment. Unaffordable is just still the theme here. But past that hurdle, then really calculating, well, what's the monthly payment? So a $700,000 house with $140,000 down payment means your mortgage is going to be $560,000. If we assume let's do a 30-year mortgage, and at a 7% interest rate, that's $3,700 a month. $3,725 and some change, to be exact. That's at a 7% interest rate. I've seen some interest rates are a little bit higher. I haven't seen interest rates below 7 for a 30-year loan in a while, but let's just start there. So that's your principal and interest payment. But you're going to have an escrow added to that monthly payment as well, and your escrow is going to be your homeowner's insurance, which, my goodness, that market is it is challenging to get homeowner's insurance right now, depending on what part of the country you're in and what companies you're looking at. And so that cost is going to vary. Property taxes will vary significantly as well. I'm just going to average and say add an extra $700 a month on top of on top of that monthly payment. And therefore, instead of your principal interest and interest payment being $37.25, let's assume that your total monthly payment, including escrow, is $4,400 a month, 52 grand, almost 53 grand a year. All right, so with those geeky numbers out there, how much income do you need in order to be able to afford that? Again, you got to get over that monthly or that down payment, but then to manage that monthly payment, how much income would you need in order to manage that monthly payment? Well, let me start with just a rule of thumb. And there's some rule of thumbs out there, and I don't love it, and I certainly wouldn't live my financial life based on just rules of thumb. But one says that you shouldn't have more than a third of your income going towards your mortgage. And therefore, if this mortgage payment in total is 52 grand a year, times 3 would mean your income would need to be above 150, call it $160,000 a year. Now that's, to meet that rule of thumb, I think that rule of thumb is if your financial life is in pristine condition and you live very, very frugally. Why? Because that rule of thumb completely ignores taxes, which will take probably 20 to 30% of your income as well. Now, everyone's got a different effective rate for taxes and state tax. Do you live in a state that has state tax as well? And with FICA tax, let's just assume, okay, and for each person it's going to vary potentially up to 5%, but let's say 25% of your income needs to go for taxes, okay? So that's going to include state and local and also include 7.65 for FICA. So honestly, it's probably closer to 30%, but I'm not sure the amount of deductions you have and all of that. So let's assume 25% of your income needs to go towards taxes. Therefore, you need an income of $200,000. Have 25% of it go to taxes, that leaves you with 150, and then that 1/3 or about a third of your income of affordability going towards your monthly payment, that would then leave you 150 net, and a third of that, 50 grand approximately, going towards the mortgage. That is more affordable. But finally, guys, and especially with housing values skyrocketing, one of the temptations, one of the challenges that we've seen for years, and it's very common, is that the desire to be in a house or desire to be in a house with certain features and whatever that costs a certain amount can start crowding out other financial goals. You've heard this as being, house poor, where all of your money and resources need to go to this house, and therefore there's not much else left for life. Well, I would argue, even if there's some left for life, there might not be a lot left over for extra goals. Financially, your success, most likely you're going to determine and look back on and say, it was based on balance. I had good balance between living for today and saving for tomorrow, enjoying today and experiences today, and saving up so that I can enjoy and have experiences tomorrow. And therefore, if you have too much of your income going towards just this house or just this one goal, and you can't fund your other goals, you're going to be out of balance, and you're going to end up not liking that house or needing to move or saying, hey, this doesn't work. Therefore, if we just make it very simple and say, well, you still are going to want to save up for retirement at the very least, and 15% should be going towards retirement. Therefore, your income is going to need to be somewhere closer to $250,000. And I'm rounding a lot here, guys, but somewhere closer to $250,000, so that 15% can go towards your 401k or retirement. 25% or so can go towards taxes, and then of what's left, a third could go towards the mortgage. And I'm using ballparks there because if you have 15% going towards retirement, but it's pre-tax, that's going to lower your tax bill. I get that. But just for rounding sake, or to get in the ballpark, roughly around $250,000 approximately would be needed in order to afford a $700,000 house. But that's just approximations, and that's just some rough math. Your situation, you've already got, your financial life already has other elements to it. You might have other debt, you might have other goals with number of kids you have or don't have. All of that is going to influence this analysis as well, to determine, well, what amount is affordable? Could you afford a $700,000 house, or how much income would you need? So what's the point? The point is that getting into a house or buying a house has always been one of the biggest financial decisions that people make. And right now it's an even bigger decision, needs more planning and more proactive analysis and planfulness in order to make it happen, especially considering that just 3 years ago, this same $700,000 house would probably cost around $400 or $450, meaning your down payment would be $900, or excuse me, 90 grand, and with a 3% mortgage or 3.5% mortgage, you're probably needing $125,000 of income, maybe $150,000 of income in order to afford this same house compared to the $250,000 that you need right now. So guys, it's just a bigger and more important financial decision that has greater ramifications. And again, to strike the right balance, you want to be working with the CFP to help you with this analysis. They're going to want you to get into the right house as well, but they're also going to be advocating for that goal along with the rest of your financial goals to make sure everything fits together. So work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.